I'm going on live, that's why.
I want to show off. You want to show off with Goldmatic.
Yo, we live, guys. We live. Guys, we're gonna do the whole engine pre-trip. All right, guys, we live. Here, you hold this. All right, so everybody remember, when you're doing the engine cab inspection in the DMV, the road test examiner is gonna tell you that they want you to do 4 engine components, 1 of the front axles, and then the 3 components behind the axle. So always remember the 4 engine components. Number 1, you got your power steering pump, which you follow this hose right here, goes right to your pump, and the pump is gear driven. Number 2, you got your air compressor. So you look for all the air lines, which is right here. The air lines coming out. So again, it's gear driven because there's no belt in the front. Next, you're gonna follow the biggest hose from underneath of the reservoir. Point a little bit towards here. And this is the biggest hose from underneath the reservoir. And it looks like it's going to the other side. So on the other side, we got our water pump. So let's go to the other side. So right here, boom, we have our water pump and we have a belt in front of it. So it's belt driven.
Water pump.
So when you have the belt, you gotta also check the belt for cuts or frays, and then, you know, press in the center of the belt to make sure there's no more than 3/4 inch of play. And then lastly, your last engine component is the alternator, the one with the fins. Always look for the fins. Once you have the fins, then you know that's the alternator. And again, boom, we have a belt. So that is also belt driven. So remember, 4 major engine components: power steering pump, air compressor, water pump, and the alternator. Now you have the front axle and 3 components behind. So since this is not a drive axle, they call it the hub seal. You see it? The hub seal is a little bit smaller. The axle is a little bit bigger, the drive axles. So hub seal is basically the axle. The first component behind is your wheel. You got your tire, you got your rim, you got your air valve, your lug nuts. So that's number 1. Number 2, you got your brake system. Brake chamber, slack adjuster, push rod, S-cam. Inside you got your brake drum, brake shoes, brake lining. The third component is your suspension. Spring hanger front and back, leaf spring, U-bolts. You got your saddle in the middle and your shock absorber. So if they tell you front axle and 3 components behind, always remember the axle's right here. Number 1 is the wheel. Number 2 is the brake system. Number 3 is your suspension system. That's just to give you guys a glimpse of how the examiners talk to you. Because sometimes the examiner says, I want the rear trailer axle and 3 components behind, and students just, you know, they just be like, I don't understand what you're saying. They just know how to do it. So remember, they're gonna ask you to do the inspection in bits and pieces. Now we're gonna run the whole engine inspection. So when you're starting your engine inspection, always remember, first thing first, you want to give them a general overview. The general overview consists of, first, checking your electrical wire harness. My electrical wire harness, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no signs of any burns, and it's properly mounted to the sockets. And I seen or smell no burns. Next, I have my colorful airlines, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, and no audible leaks. And they're secure to the air valve, and they're on tight. Air valve not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the firewall. After that, all the hoses from the engine. Remember, this is general overview, so you want to just, all the hoses from the engine. No abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no visible leaks from the ones carrying fluids, and no audible leaks from the ones with air. Next, the engine itself, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the frame. All mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Next, you want to tell them where the dipsticks are and where the engine oil cap is. So if you don't have an engine oil cap and your dipstick is big enough, you've put the oil through the cap, through the dipstick tube itself. Or if you do have a cap, which in this case we don't have a cap, then you tell them you fill it in through, you open up the cap, inspect the cap, and you fill in the oil through there. So over here, we have our engine oil dipstick and our transmission oil dipstick, because this is an automatic transmission. In order to check the engine oil dipstick, the engine has to be off. I take it out, clean it, reinsert it, take it back out, and make sure it's above the refill mark. Transmission oil dipstick, the engine has to be on. Take it out, clean it, reinsert it, take it back out, make sure it's above the refill mark. If it's not above the refill mark, I'll fill it in through the tubes itself, since we do not have an engine oil cap. Now, next, I always like to start with the steering system. So I'll start with the steering system first. Steering shaft, not broken, bent, or cracked. If I twist it, I shouldn't get more than 10 degrees of play. Properly greased. Properly mounted to the U-joints or universal joints. Universal joints, not broken, cracked, or damaged on the top and bottom. Properly greased. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Properly mounted and secure to the steering. It's properly mounted and secure to the steering gearbox. Steering gearbox, not broken, bent, or cracked. Properly mounted and secure to the tractor frame. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. The hoses coming out, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. Clamps in the lock position. One hose goes to my power steering reservoir. Power steering reservoir, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Power steering fluid is above the refill mark. The cap is on tight, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the tractor frame. Bracket and mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or damaged. No bolts missing. The hose coming out from the reservoir and this hose coming from the gearbox is both going into my power steering pump. My power steering pump is gear driven, not broken, cracked, or damaged, and is properly mounted and secure to the engine, and I see no signs of any visible leaks. Next, you want to come down to your pitman arm. Pitman arm, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the steering gearbox and also to the drag link. The mounting bolt on the top, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Over here we have our castle nut and cotter pin, and it's not rusted, cracked, or missing. No shiny threads, which would indicate looseness. The cotter pin is in the lock position and is not rusted, cracked, or missing. And the pitman arm top and bottom is properly greased. Next, we have our drag link. Drag link is not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the pitman arm and to the control arm. Both sides are properly greased. We also have the castle nut cotter pin, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Pin is in the lock position and is not rusted, cracked, or missing. Control arm, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the wheel. All the castle nut and cotter pins, which is right here, is not rusted, cracked, or missing. Pins in the lock position, not rusted, cracked, or missing. No shiny threads on both castle nuts. Over here, we have our tie rod and steering arm. Tie rod, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the steering arm. Steering arm is not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the wheel. Castle nut and cotter pin, not rusted, cracked, or missing. It's in the lock position. Pin is in the lock position, not rusted, cracked, or missing, and is properly greased. Over here we have our mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Now that's the end of our steering system. The next one I like to do is my suspension system. Spring hanger front, spring hanger back, not broken, cracked, or damaged. properly mounted and secured to the frame. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Leaf spring, properly aligned. No crack, no scissoring, no missing blades. And it's properly mounted and secured to the spring hanger. And there's no scissoring. Over here, we have two U-bolts. U-bolts, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure over the leaf spring to the axle cross member. On the bottom, we have the mounting bolts, which shouldn't be rusted, cracked, or missing. Over here, we have our saddle, not broken, cracked, or damaged. And it's properly mounted and secure between the leaf spring and U-bolt. Our shock absorber, not broken, cracked, or damaged. And there's no hydraulic fluid leaks. Top and bottom bushings, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. And the mounting bolt, not rusted, cracked, or missing. No shiny threads, no rust streaks behind the bolts, which indicate looseness. Next, after the suspension system, I would like to do the air and axle system. So we already seen where the air compressor is. Air compressor, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the engine. And it is also gear driven. All the air lines coming out, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. And there's no audible leaks from the air lines coming out or the air compressor itself. And then from there, high pressure airline, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no audible leaks, properly mounted and secured to the brake chamber. ABS wire, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no burns, properly mounted and secure to the brake drum. Brake chamber, not broken, cracked, or damaged, no audible leaks, properly mounted and secure to the S-cam. The mounting bolt, not rusted, cracked, or missing, no shiny threads, no rust streaks behind the bolts. Slack adjuster and push rod, not broken, cracked, or damaged. And if we pull on it with the brakes released and the wheels chalked, we shouldn't get no more than 1 inch of play. If we have more than 1 inch of play, then that means we need brake adjustments before we start driving. The cotter pins is in the lock position, not rusted, cracked, or missing. S-cam, not broken, cracked, or damaged, and is properly mounted and secured to the wheel. Inside, I have my brake drum. My brake drum, there's no bluing from heat, no grease, no debris, no rust, not crack. My brake lining, I need more than 1/4 inch of lining for operation. The lining has no abrasions, no cuts, no grease, no debris, and there's no glazing from heat. Inside, outside rim, no cracks, no dents, no illegal welding. Inside, outside tire walls, no abrasion, no bulges, no bubbles, properly seated to the rim, and there's no audible leaks. Top of my tire, minimum thread depth should be 432, and you can never recap or rethread the front tires. And it has even wear across the top. All my lug nuts, not rusted, cracked, or missing, and it's all on tight in the lock position. No shiny threads, no rust streaks behind the bolt, which indicates looseness. I have my air valve stem, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. Cap is present, it's on tight, no audible leaks. I check it with the air gauge, and it should be between 90 and 130 psi, but the tire manufacturer states it wants 120 psi. And if I need more air, I refill it through the valve stem itself. My hub seal, not broken, cracked, or damaged, no visible leaks behind the seal. In order to check the oil level, I have to check it from the center by opening this cap. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing, and they're on tight. My mud guard, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Oh, we have a little damage here, we'll report that to maintenance. And I have proper clearance from the tire to the mud guard, and I have proper clearance from the mud guard and the floor. Now we're almost done on this side. Next, I like to do the cooling system last because half of it's on this side and the other half is on the other side. So last meaning before I go to the other side, I want to start the cooling system so I could get this half first and then go on the other side for the other half. Now, cooling system. I have my radiator, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the frame. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing, and there's no visible leaks. All the hoses coming out the radiator, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, and there's no visible leaks from the ones carrying fluids, no audible leaks from the ones carrying air. I have my clutch fan. My clutch fan, not broken, cracked, or damaged, no missing blades. Blades have no grease, no debris. The clutch fan is properly mounted and secure to the engine, and it is belt driven. Belt has no cuts, no frays. If I press in the center of the belt, no more than 3/4 inch of play. Next, I have my coolant reservoir, not broken, cracked, or damaged. The antifreeze is above the refill mark, and the cap is on tight. It's properly mounted and secure to the radiator. Wire harness coming out, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no burns, and it's in the lock position. All the hoses, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no visible leaks. The clamps are in the lock position, not rusted, cracked, or missing. In order to locate the water pump, you follow the biggest hose from underneath of the reservoir or the biggest hose from underneath of the radiator. So as we see, this hose goes to the other side. Examiner, we're gonna go to the other side to complete our engine inspection. Let's go to the other side. So far we did our steering system, we did our air and axle system, and we did part of the cooling system. So we have 2 more components left. Third component, water pump, not broken, cracked, or damaged. It is belt driven. Belt has no cuts or frays. And if I press in the center of the belt, no more than 3/4 inch of play. The water pump is properly mounted and secure to the engine, and there is no visible leaks. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Next, now our cooling system is almost finished. We gotta finish up with the intercooler. Our intercooler, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the frame and the radiator. Our intercooler hose, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the intercooler and the turbo system. All the rubber parts, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. All the clamps, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Next, we could start with the air filter housing and then end off doing the turbo system. Air filter housing, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the tractor firewall. And the air filter gauge on this specific truck is on the inside. Sometimes it will be on the outside over here or over there. But since it's not here, we know it's on the inside. So we'll check it when we're on the inside. All the wire harness, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts, no burns. Mounting bolts and bracket, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Air filter manifold, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the turbo system. All the clamps, not rusted, cracked, or missing, in the lock position. Our turbo system, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the engine. And there's no signs of any soot and no visible leaks when the engine is on. But when the engine is off, you just check the seams and make sure there's no visible soot in the seams, which will indicate a leak. Next, we have our exhaust system from the back of the turbo system. We can't see it so well on this truck, or we can see it from here. The exhaust system starts from over here, and we say it's not broken, cracked, or damaged, and there's no soot throughout the exhaust system, which indicates a visible leak. Almost finished. Now we're finished with the cooling system. Now we're gonna go into our charging system, which is our alternator, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the engine. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. It is belt driven. Belt has no cuts, no frays. If I press in the center of the belt, I shouldn't get more than 3/4 inches of play. And all the wire harness coming out, no abrasion, no bulges, no cuts. Next, we'll do our AC system to wrap it up. AC compressor, not broken, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted and secure to the engine, and it is also belt driven. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. Belt, no cuts or frays. If I press in the center of the belt, no more than 3/4 inch of play. Over here we have our AC dryer, not broken, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted and secure to the firewall. All the hoses coming out, not rusted, no cracks, and there's no visible leaks. All the mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. And then if you see over here, we have the AC condenser, that skinny thing in the front. AC condenser, not broken, cracked, or damaged, no bends, and there's no visible leaks. Properly mounted and secure to the radiator. All mounting bolts, not rusted, cracked, or missing. And then to wrap it up, you say the suspension system on the passenger side, we inspected the same as the driver's side. The braking system on the passenger side, we inspected the same as the driver's side. The wheel and hub seal on the passenger side, we inspected the same as the driver's side. And that is the full engine inspection with the 4 components and 1 front axle with 3 components behind the axle. Now, it doesn't matter how you guys start this inspection. They would usually want you to start from the driver's side and then end off here, because that's where all the most parts are, and then you have some items on this side too. So usually whichever side the examiner is standing on, that's the side you're going to start. So it doesn't matter if you start from top to bottom. The way that we do it here at Ayaan Institute is a way that I think that once everyone follows, they're not going to miss anything. If you start from top to bottom, sometimes you get all the linkage and mounting, but you'll miss one of the major components. So if you miss one of the 4 major components, you know you're out. So in order to memorize the major components and in order to locate it properly, if you follow this method that I teach, there's no way you're gonna miss any of the major components, like power steering pump, air compressor, water pump, and also your alternator. Most people, when they start top to bottom, they get steering shaft, everything, but then they miss the most important thing, which is the power steering pump. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As we go along, we're gonna put more and more videos up here, and we're gonna start going on live a little bit more to, you know, show back, you know, and give you guys a little something to study on.
Ayaan.
Choose Ayaan Institute. Thanks, guys.
Now, look.